Today's presenters, we're going to have myself, Chris Krause, Jennifer Henquinet, and a brand new presenter, Miss Wendy Crockett, who many of you have met if you've been to any of our conferences or if you've had to order any hardware lately. She's our hardware specialist and also now our newly appointed software specialist on inside sales, Miss Wendy Crockett. And of course the rest of the team still holding down the fort is Josh, Jennifer Siegel, and Greg Schmidt. Now the webinar interactions, of course, all of you are muted, so don't try talking on your phone. That's just to keep it a little bit quieter for everybody else. But you can put things into the chat box and ask questions. And of course, at the end, you're presented with a survey, and we appreciate all of your input during that survey, because we do get that report at the end of every webinar to try to bring you new and fresh content each and every week. So what are we going to cover today? Today we're going to cover Kofax VRS Elite. You're going to learn what is new in the core process of VRS Elite and what's new with server capabilities. One of the cool new things they've done is actually enhance the entire product by taking rather than just having VRS be a standalone application, they've made it a server client application. So you're going to learn all about that. We're also going to show you what the features are from the 4 version you're probably running today to what the new VRS Elite version will give you. And of course, the sad news of pricing, because it isn't free. It is a big, big change with many, many components that you may or may not need. But we'll go through the entire pricing model, and Wendy can drill down all the pricing needs for your specific organization. And then, of course, we're going to throw in some last-minute OnBase news, kind of keep you abreast on the latest changes and things happening there, just so you can see the exciting things happening starting with this new year, 2011. So talking about core improvements, what's happened to just the product itself? The product itself has gotten many new enhancements. The first one is this whole process of multi-core processing. Most of you are running newer PCs now, running multi-core, whether it's dual-core or quad-core processors. In the previous versions of VRS, it really didn't take advantage of that dual-core capability or the quad-core capability, where now, in this VRS Elite version, all that processing can be handled at the production level license. If you purchase one of those, you can get all 4 of your quad-core processor doing image processing, which is fantastic for turning on advanced clarity. So in the old version, you had advanced clarity. Now you can turn that on and process it much faster than in the previous versions. Now, everyone's had these pesky little corner-filled, irregular-shaped pages. Whether it was a staple in the corner when you ripped the page off, or maybe the scanner ripped it off when it was feeding through because someone didn't pull out the staple, all of those are now fixed with what's called an edge fill or dog-eared corner feature in the new VRS Elite. Even if the page was torn, say the whole bottom corner was torn off, and it looks like part of the dog ate in this example, so it looks like they ate part of the page. Yeah, that's all fixed with the new VRS Elite. No longer do you have to worry about that black showing up in like the previous version 4 used to do. The intelligent halftone is a new feature that was never previously released in any of them, and this is a new hybrid. For a lot of you that have forms where sometimes pictures are part of the form or where there's pictures as a piece of the document, you didn't want to have to scan those in color just to make the picture look good, because obviously the image size gets really, really large. Grayscale did an okay job, and black and white, well, the text looked great, but the image itself, as you can tell in the bottom left-hand corner, wasn't so favorable. That does not look like something that would make sense. So what they developed was what's called halftone. And halftone basically blends between a color and a black and white to minimize the image size while still keeping the integrity of all the text. So you have a very clean image that's easily understood what it was taken of. In this case, you can see there's a very bad little auto accident, probably from one of our beautiful Wisconsin roads with all the snow and ice we've had lately. And in this case, even the insured initials box is clean and precise. So you can see anybody, if there was initials in there, you'd be able to see that cleanly along with the image itself. So a very nice new feature that they've put into the core new product. Now, many of you use scan-in checks and or perhaps even some contracts where the front and back have meaning, especially if they were together. So in the existing versions, if you scan them in, you could get two images, a front, in this case, for the example, is a check, the front side, and then you have a second image, which is the back side. Well, they've added this merge capability to automatically put those two images together. In this case, the check, as you can see, the first example is the landscape, so you can see both the signature on the check and the check of the image stored as one single image. So if you were to retrieve those images in OnBase, for example, you would get the entire image, front and back, which would obviously make it very nice for, if you're a banking customer, to pull up your check with the signature all in one. Obviously, you can use this with contracts or any other documents such as signature cards or things that have meaning for your organization. Now, a couple other features that they've added in. First is advanced clarity. Now, advanced clarity isn't new. They've always had advanced clarity. However, what they've done is split it off into an auto contrast and then intelligent cleanup. Before it was only one. And for turning that on, oftentimes slowed your scanner down 20 or 30%. Well, they've broken that apart, streamlined the algorithms that are used behind it to make it faster. And so if most of your documents just need to have, say, the auto cleanup, or the auto contrast, pardon me, then it goes much faster. You can only turn that one on, and the new algorithm, you only reduce speeds on high volume production level scanners moderately versus 20 or 30%. And then perhaps you need that intelligent cleanup, and that's where it does that rescan several times to give you the cleanest possible image. Again, you can change the sensitivity to it, turn on that piece if that's what you need, and it will process very quickly. It's very nice. Another feature they've added is content-based deskew. Everybody remembers what deskew is. Deskew itself takes, if your page wasn't put in there properly, or let's say your scan operator was a little lazy and didn't move the guides over, so when it grabbed the piece of paper and pulled it in crooked and put it through, it always had the deskew based on the entire page, but now it can look at the content of the page and see if that's deskewed and straighten that out. So it's a very exciting change. Additionally, they've enhanced the whole fill feature. For the last few versions, they've had whole fill, and that hasn't been too big a deal. It's been very nice. But the reality is, most hole punches don't stay circular for long. So if they've been in your binder for a while and they've been pulled in and out, you notice that circle is no longer quite a circle, it's more rectangular. Or if you have a rectangular hole punch, this takes and addresses that. So you can have more of an oblong hole, and you'll recognize that based on the fact of pattern that it's 3 and it's along the edge, or 2 along the top. It takes that pattern and says, oh, well, it must be a circle or a square that it's going to be filled. So that's exciting. So it does a much better job of cleaning up those types of things on your documents. And then last but not least, they've added the capability of doing a manual crop. So cropping before, of course, was existent in the product. However, you can only specify a number of pixels, and it would automatically crop to that particular size, and that was it. Where now you can manually adjust based on your particular document's needs. And with that, we're going to jump into Miss Jennifer, who's going to demo a lot of these features in the new VRS Elite.
All right. Good morning, everyone. If you've ever used the test console that came with your existing VRS product, it was called VC Demo. So you would start up VC Demo if you wanted to test something prior to, say, testing something in your third-party application, or if you do use OnBase and something wasn't working right, you might have used VC Demo to test it in there to see if VRS was doing what you wanted it to do. Well, they have now changed it, and it is called the VRS Test Console. This is what it looks like now. It is very similar to the Microsoft way of doing things, with the lovely ribbon on the top and all the tabs across the top. So more and more of our applications are having that look and feel of that Microsoft Office look to them. So just a couple things. This is where you select the scanner. Before, you used to go, I believe it's scan and then select scanner. You now do that here, and you can go ahead and select your scanner. I've already selected it to get started. If you go into settings here, this is basically what you're going to see is the interface now. So if you were to, say you do have OnBase and you opened OnBase and you clicked on the Advanced tab when you were creating your profiles, this is what you would see with Kofax VRS, which is a little bit different than what it looked like with the regular VRS, the VRS Elite. Up here, I've created a couple profiles. Here's the edge fill that Chris was talking about, the hole fill. We still merge slides is right here. The ones that have like an orange tinge to them are the ones that we have selected for this profile. If you see, if I change it to the merge profile, you'll see that the merge one is highlighted. So here's that auto deskew, or that Chris was talking about, that now does it based on content or based on edges. And then here's the halftone pictures that Chris had mentioned. And then here's your page delete or detect. And then they also have a setting so you can change the content sensitivity based on what kind of documents. If it's picking up blank pages, then maybe you need to change that. So I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. And we're going to go ahead and scan settings here. This is where you would pick, you know, color or black and white. If you want to see if it's pulling in a barcode or a patch code, you can do that here. Some of you have probably used the VC demo to see if it's actually picking up your barcode, so that's also available. We're going to go ahead and scan in a sheet with the edge fill profile selected. All right, and as you can see here, well, let me show you a little bit better. If I take off the edge fill, you'll see that there was a big corner of the piece of paper missing. So with the edge fill, it totally fills it in, and there's absolutely no remnants that a corner of the page was missing. What I'm going to show you down here in the tray is now the word or the letters VRS. It used to be a little red and blue curly Q type thing that you would use to, you would right click on and change your profiles and whatnot. So here we can do it here. So I'm going to go ahead and select the halftone this time, and I'm going to go ahead and scan in a bunch of ID cards, and you will see that if we pull up one of these ID cards, that if we were to take off this halftone, black and white makes it really, really hard for us to see the actual picture. But if we go ahead and we enable the halftone, we now have a better picture, but this was scanned in black and white, so it will take up less space. And the file, so the file size won't be nearly as big as it would have been if we would have done it in color or grayscale. As down here, they have the admin console that you used to use is now a little bit different and a little bit more improved with Kofax VRS. If we go ahead and open the admin console, you can see it's got a lot more options than it did before. We've got your preferences, so we're using whatever language my computer is, English, but that can be changed. We've got the exceptions, which I'm sure most of you have used these before, whether it's out of paper, paper jam, any of these that you might have set in the past. A couple of the new ones is there is the color confidence too low. They also, with OnBase or with new Kofax VRS, there is, it can do color detection, and this is where you would set this value in order for you to detect color on some pages. And there's also an auto profile confidence, which I'm going to show you in a little while throughout this demo, but you can have many profiles, and depending on the document and how confident the system is of those documents, you can actually, it will actually pick the right profile depending on what you, or according to what you've trained the profile to speak. And I'll show you that here. See, this is the enable training mode. So if I go back here and I go to settings, you'll see a train button down here. And so you need to train each profile with one document, and then it will look at that document going forward and be able to determine what profile it should use. And I'll show you that when we towards the end of this demo. Here's all your profiles, so you can manage them, moving them up, down, deleting them, saving them, renaming them. You can do that all from here. They have scan and configuration, which you used to do that through Control Panel and the KSM. You can now do that straight from the Admin Console. And then another feature, new feature, which Chris will talk about in more length, is device health. Now this is just the device health of my scanner that's hooked up to my machine. So this tells me if maybe the rollers are going bad, or it's had way too many paper jams, or way too many multi-feeds, or whatever the case may be. But I would be able to look in here and see if my scanner is, parts of my scanner are deteriorating, and maybe I need to start thinking about replacing rollers or stuff like that. But so I'm going to select the merge slides profile, and we're going to go ahead and do a couple checks so you can see how that works. Now if we go ahead and we scan them. All right, and you can see we've got 4 checks, and I scanned them in landscape. And if we make this a little bit bigger, we've got the front here, and then we've got the back side with the signature here. So that'll come in handy for those of you that are processing checks and having to make sure that you can keep the front and the back together. This will be very beneficial instead of having them as 2 separate pages or 2 separate documents. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to show you the auto profiling piece. And we're going to do that from within OnBase. So before I get out of here, I'm going to go ahead and select the auto profile from down there. And we'll have to close this because, as many of you have probably seen, you can't have this open and try to scan from another program at the same time. So we're going to go ahead and scan within OnBase here. Whoa. guess we ended up with a multi-seed. So, and as you can see, it wasn't so sure about this document, so it, of course, stopped it, and the confidence was low because it looks like 2 of our index cards went through at the same time. So I'm just going to go ahead and click OK on it for right now. Here's another one that was missing part of the page, but it wasn't quite so confident, so it comes up in here, and we're going to verify that it's using the edge fill, and then we will click OK. And besides the minor glitch, you'll see this Kofax page did have an edge torn off of it, and it's been filled. And here we have the index card that was halftone. This was a normal sheet of paper, so it came in fine, upside down, but fine. So besides our minor problem here, and we would probably then delete this and bring that page in. But besides that, it chose the 2 profiles that it needed and brought in the documents without us having to do any manual, very little manual work. So we'll get back to the presentation. And I will hand it back over to Chris.
Thanks, Jen. Man, I like that edge fill. I wish I had that when I was turning in my homework in school.
Yeah.
Right,
couldn't use that dog-aided excuse anymore, could you?
No. And those are just the core capabilities. So all the things we showed you now, if you were to purchase the upgrade and put it on your scan station now, those are all the functionalities you could do today with just the upgraded Kofax VRS Elite. So the edge fill, the auto profiling, all those pieces can be done individually on each scan station. But now we're going to dive into the real power of this new Kofax VRS Elite, one of the cool new capabilities of making this a basic scan station solution to an enterprise solution. And the first thing it does is they simplified the way you deploy the software. And actually they simplified the way you can use just about everything. Because some of the annoyances we had before, of course, was you had to go install the software on every machine. And that was not a lot of fun. Well, they've added the MSI so you can automatically push the software out. So if your scan stations aren't sitting in the building which you are in, and you are being the administrator of the scan station, you can now push those out using SMS or any other tool to get those pushed out. And when you do the installation, it automatically will uninstall any 4.x version you have on there. So whether you're using 4.1, 4.2, or 4.5, you can automatically have that uninstalled as soon as you put on VRS Elite. So it's very helpful. In addition, so many of you have called in and said, oh, I lost a hard drive and I can't find my VRS license, or I can't find the software. That's licensing is now going to be centralized on the server. So if you buy the server, it will take and store all of your license information and then allocate that license up to the individual scan station. The concurrent, and basically it also adds the functionality of a concurrent license pool. So always before you had to buy a VRS license for every single scan station. Well, not any longer. If you have the server, you can buy one set of licenses that will exist on the server, and then when the scan station goes and connects in, it will take a license from that server and pull it from a concurrent pool of licensing. We'll go through an example of that a little bit later, but you wouldn't necessarily have to buy a license for every single scan station any longer, saving you money, which is great. And then last but not least, the whole central profile management. One annoying thing is, obviously, if you have many different scanners and or even similar scanners, but they're scattered all over the place, you had to build VRS profiles on every single scan station because it's individual to the scan PC. Well, now with the server, you can build that first set of scan profiles, and once you get them perfect, you upload them to the server, and then the server can manage it, and you can push them out to every single scan station. So you can keep a central set of profiles that are guaranteed to be correct.
so nobody can accidentally change it on one scan station or another. You always have the same set of profiles running on all the scanners, so you get consistent results. And again, you can manage it centrally rather than having to go to every single scan station to get those profiles put up. So speaking of shared profiles, as indicated, and Jen showed you in the demo, this is the profile window now. You can create several of them, and you can see that there's a publish button. So on one of your scan stations, you would obviously install Elite, and you would build your initial set of profiles, and then you would do a publish, push them up to the server, and then every client, when you start VRS, would go out and pull that profile data down. And that can be specific to each scanner model. Because before, obviously, VRS profiles are related to the scanner model. It was a little bit frustrating. You couldn't just take and say, export them out and put them on the next scan station, where now you can using this technology. And as Jen showed you in OnBase in particular, there's this whole new concept of auto profile. So you have a batch of documents, and you had to apply multiple profiles. I know some places were having it stop whenever it found a new document and then applying like an F6 or an F7 function key to be able to expedite it selecting that next profile. Well, now you don't have to worry about it any longer because it should automatically apply the correct profile as soon as you do your scanning of the batch. And if it doesn't, or if it seems to be outside that parameter, that threshold that she showed you, it'll automatically prompt you to say, oh, which one should I use? So it gives the power back to the operator to correct anything that it isn't 100% confident or doesn't meet your threshold that you established. And as Jen mentioned, you do have to put in, you do have to create what is, you can train it, you can tell it what is this particular document, what's like in our example a merge, or what is an edge fill. And once you do that, it just takes and uses the geometric form type. Basically, it takes a look at a page and says, based on my example, this one best matches it, and applies that profile to it. And as Jen also showed you, training it was very easy. You literally put in a document, scan it in with your profile, click the train button, and it becomes a part of your train set. So it's very easy to do, along with setting those thresholds all through the administration console. So very simplistic configuration that then makes a very powerful tool for auto profiling. Now, as Jen showed you, device health is very handy for being proactive about what is happening to your scan. Now, your scan operators today should already be cleaning their scanners every day, at least once, sometimes more depending on the volume and the type of documents going through. You should be cleaning the entire transport section, obviously all the glass where the lenses are, on a daily basis. So let's say they're not doing such a good job of monitoring how often maybe they're getting paper jams or multi-feeds, or if they're getting any streaks or stretch images, in this case mispicks, and then it'll show you what type of problem you're having. So in the case of a mispick, your pick roller is worn out and you need to get a replacement. Perhaps the ADF roller, or for a paper jam, which of course is like tires on a car, they do just wear out over time, so they do need to be replaced. This gives you a proactive approach. You can literally monitor all of your scanners in a central location from the server to be able to see which ones are performing, which ones you're going to need to order parts for, so on and so forth, to ensure, because scanning, especially at the beginning of the process, is so critical, you don't want those scanners to be down. So this gives you that proactive approach to monitoring all of your scanners. In addition, it does support the SNMP, so the Simple Network Management Protocol, method of information. So there are other third-party tools. You may already have them monitoring your servers or maybe your router switches to monitor network traffic. Use the same type of protocol and get statements to be able to transfer this information. So if you have one of those tools and you want to integrate it, you can. And this slide shows you what exactly you're seeing for the device health. As Jen showed you, in this case, in this example, it's a Fujitsu 5120, but you can see the rollers are fine, clarity looks good, but it's getting a fair amount of paper jams. So that's something you may want to take a look at and or replace one of those consumable parts. But you can also set, where do I want to do my thresholds on this? So just like there were thresholds for what type of profile is it, there's also thresholds on how many paper jams would be considered a problem. And in this case, critical is 50 and warning is at 85. And in the bottom right-hand corner, you can see this is what pops up. You get a critical notification indicating excessive multi-feed errors. So you get that proactive, hey, I've set my thresholds for multi-feed. I'm getting a problem because now I've got this message coming up and I need to have that scanner looked at. So a very nice new feature to be able to proactively monitor all of your scan stations. Now for those of you using 4 or 5, or whether it's Basic or Pro or Elite, here's a feature matrix to kind of show you what is included in 4 or 5 today and what's included in VRS Elite. Now obviously, like the crop, deskew, and edge cleanup, while they were there before, they've been upgraded, which we demoed. We've also updated the advanced clarity and wholesale, which of course existed before. All those other features still exist. The EVC scanning, which is just enhanced barcode, existed in the Pro version, which many of you are using, but also exists in the new Elite. But then that entire section, bottom section, is all new stuff. Starting with that Microsoft Fluent UI, that's just that ribbon bar piece up along the top, that new interface. It is intuitive and much easier to use than the old one, but that's what they mean by Microsoft Fluent. Of course, the MSI installer, which we mentioned earlier, the auto contrast and edge fill, and the merge, which you saw, along with the intelligent halftone, intelligent profile, so that auto selecting of the profile, and the device help. All of those are brand new features that were never there before, along with multi-core processing, sharing profiles and licensing, which of course didn't exist before, and then the Kofax monitor, which is that whole piece of being able to monitor all of your ones across a wide area. So a lot of great new features that, of course, do come at a price. It's not free to upgrade to this version. If you do upgrade to the version, any subsequent changes, just like with the 4.1, 4.2, 4.5 would be included, but this jump is rather large. So there's a small fee with it. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Wendy to discuss all the pricing with you.
All right, thanks, Chris. Now that you've seen all of the fabulous new features offered by VRS Elite, it's time to talk about the pricing. And as you can see here, Gilbert's having a little problem with how confusing pricing is. Fortunately, VRS and Kofax, they did not go this route. It's all very simple. There are 2 options when it comes to purchasing VRS Elite. One is to upgrade your VRS licenses, including OEM versions being bundled with your scanner. Most of you listening today will probably fall into this category. The second option is a net new for those of you who do not already have VRS Pro, or if you're adding your fleet that does not come bundled with VRS. So let's look at the upgrade pricing first. If you currently own VRS Pro licenses, or if you're purchasing a scanner with OEM VRS, it's pretty simple to upgrade to VRS Elite. It follows the same pricing model as VRS Pro with desktop, workgroup, and production versions. So upgrade what you currently own, or upgrade what came with your scanner. As you can see here, you can upgrade VRS Pro versions, anything from version 3.x through currently version 4.5, I believe. You can upgrade any of those to VRS Elite. So the desktop upgrade is $325. The workgroup upgrade is $725. The production upgrade is $1,225. As Chris said, core improvements are included with the upgrades, like the corner fill and the intelligent halftone, merge size, all those things. As with original VRS Pro licenses, the desktop version does not read barcodes. So if you need that feature, you have to purchase the workgroup version. Workgroup and production levels include the enhanced barcode features, and production licensing adds the multi-core process, which, as Chris mentioned, will help speed up the scanner when a lot of the features are turned on. The VRS license server, $6,000. It's not necessary to purchase that piece unless you're planning to do the central management of things like concurrent licenses and profile management from a central location. There's no software maintenance, and there would be professional services if you need our help to set up your system, and of course those would be a case-by-case basis. This slide shows the purchasing of new licenses, so net new. You would use this pricing if you were adding a new scanner that did not come bundled with VRS, or if you don't have VRS already. Example, some of the Kodak models, some of those don't come with VRS, and the Canon models of scanners don't come with VRS. Again, the desktop version does not read barcodes. You might notice that the cost of the new license is twice the cost of an upgrade. So $650 for the desktop, $1,450 for the work group, and $2,450 for the production versions. And then, of course, the license server is the same price, $6,000. What you might not notice is that the price of VRS Elite purchased as a new license is the same price as purchasing VRS Professional. So if you're faced with the decision to purchase VRS Pro or VRS Elite, obviously you'd probably want to purchase the VRS Elite since there's so many more features. Okay, and one thing I do want to cover is how you might price an installation with a large number of scanners using the concurrent licensing model to your advantage. As Chris mentioned, VRS Elite server license allows you to set up a concurrent pool of licenses that are available to all your scanners, regardless of their location. So the scanner will come online and it will automatically select the level of license that's appropriate for that scanner. And if they're all taken up, so say a desktop came on, it would pick a desktop license. If all the desktop licenses were used up, it would select the next one up. So it would go to a work group and then to a production. It wouldn't increase the capabilities of your scanner. It would just pick the next license up. So, of course, the downside is if all the licenses are in use, then whoever's trying to scan something has to wait until somebody else is done. And finally, we have an example of an upgrade pricing model that you would use if you were upgrading. And this is where we're going to talk about how you would use the VRS license server and the concurrent pool of licenses to save yourself some money. If you notice here, the quantity of license purchased is less than the total number of scanners that they actually have. So Chris and I are going to run through a little pricing skit for you to illustrate how this might work.
Ring, 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 ring.
Naviant, this is Wendy.
Good morning, Wendy. I just saw this great webinar on Kofax VRS Elite, and I simply had to find out more about what my pricing options are.
That's great, Chris. I'd be glad to help. Why don't you tell me about your operation?
Well, I had my appendix taken out. Oh, you mean my business operation?
No, your business operation, please.
Oh, well, I've got multiple locations that are spread across the entire country, including 20 desktop scanners, 9 departmental scanners, and 3 production-level scanners that are sitting in my records management area. And currently, all my scanners are running VRS 4.5.
Okay, so you have a total of 32 scanners all over the country. Are you interested in managing these from a central location?
That would be very helpful if I could do that.
All right, so we'll start with the VRS license server at $6,000, and that will give you all of the central management features.
That would be fantastic.
All right, let's talk about the desktop scanners first. Do you process barcodes on these?
No, and those are used more intermittently, so they're not used all throughout the day. But I do scan in things like ID cards and correspondence items in those.
Okay, great. We can upgrade those using the desktop level licenses then at $325 per license. Times 20 scanners would give us a price of $6,500. And let's price the rest of the system. So you have 9 workgroup scanners at $725 each, total out to $6,525, and then the production scanners at $1,125, total out to $3,375. With the server piece, the price to upgrade your entire network to VRS Elite, including the server, comes to $22,400.
What? Holy cow, do you think I have a money tree sitting out in my yard? There's no way I can get that out to my CFO.
All right, well, let's find out more about how you're using the scanners, and maybe we can pare it down some for you and make it more acceptable for your CFO.
Well, that would be great.
The desktop scanners that you mentioned they were used intermittently throughout the day and they're scattered around the country, so maybe they might be in different time zones?
That's correct.
Okay, so since the license server manages all the licenses as a concurrent pool to pull from, do you think licensing only half of those scanners would allow your operations to function just as efficiently?
Yeah, I think that should work, but at some point in time I could always add on more if I needed to, right?
Right, absolutely. So we'll upgrade half the desktops plus one, so 11 of those. How about the other one?
Well, the departmental scanners are used a little more regularly, so we probably need to use a few more licenses there, and most of those are on the East Coast. I do have one on the West Coast, though, and so we can probably drop that one out. But the production scanners, all of those are in one location, and they're pretty much running 24/7.
Okay, that makes sense. So if we license 11 of the desktops, 8 of the departmentals, and all 3 production scanners plus the server, we're looking at $18,750. So we saved you almost $4,000. And if you spread that cost across all 32 scanners, that means upgrading your entire system to VRS Elite averages out to less than $600 per scanner. What do you think of that?
I like that a lot better. That's a little more palatable. Now,
well, I'm glad.
What about software maintenance and professional service fees?
Great question. There are no software maintenance fees with Kofax VRS Elite. Obviously, if you require Naviant's assistance to install and configure your upgrade, there will be professional service fees. But, Chris, you worked with our team before, so I'm sure you know that that will be money well spent in terms of peace of mind that the job is done properly and in a timely manner.
Absolutely. I always love having their award-winning service in my organization.
You're welcome. And that concludes our pricing. So we'll turn it over to
Well, I hope I cleared up all the pricing needs. And at Wendy, it'll be fantastic to run through your individual organization's pricing needs based on what features you would use and the type of scanners that you have. She is fluent in it all, so don't hesitate to give her a call, which we'll talk about at the end of the presentation. Now, taking a quick little leap into OnBase land for just a moment, there are some quick last-minute OnBase news, a little hot off the press. And as we had mentioned before at the end of the year webinar, that OnBase is going to go hassless. What does that mean to you? No more little red thing hanging off any kind of PC and or server, and no more need to have a little red hanging thingy and hash drivers. It's going to be completely system-based. So they're going to go to traditional licensing, moving forward with OnBase version Service Pack 1. That's very exciting. And Service Pack 1 should be out in literally days. So we're right around the corner from having that available. And once that's in place, you won't need to have your HASP anymore. You can't return it. You don't get any refund. If you stack them all up, you might be able to play Jenga, but that would be about it. Basically, they want you to keep it as a backup. So if something were to ever happen to your system and the licensing was not able to work, you could plug in your HASP to get access to configuration. Another thing they're going to do is in version 11, they're looking to get that out in the summertime. So I know a lot of people are trying to figure out when they want to do their OnBase upgrade. For those of you wanting to do it in the first quarter, I'd obviously recommend waiting for Service Pack 1, which should be out here in just days. And if you're looking to more third quarter or fourth quarter, well, certainly version 11 will be out in that time frame. So I would recommend waiting for that version, which of course will include the hassless option as put into Service Pack 1. Some other cool things they're doing at Highland, they're actually working on some integrations with the iPad. So a lot of you have, of course, fallen in love with the Apple technology, and the iPad is a lot of fun. I think air hockey is my favorite part, but it's also good for business needs. It's fast, quick, portable, and Highland is working on some integrations with that. They're also doing some enhancements to the web client. So they're looking to make that much more streamlined and more versatile. So again, expanding the functionality of the web client, keeping it thin and light. Obviously, everyone's heard of the whole cloud computing, falls in that realm. So some exciting new things will be coming out of development related to that. They're also developing some new Unity eForms. Obviously, the HTML eForms that people are used to and using today will still be available, but they're expanding that functionality into the Unity realm and making it much easier and much better as far as overall processing. So some exciting new things coming down the pipe for OnBase. And obviously the integration of Kofax VRS Elite with that piece will make it even better for year 2011. And with that, we've got just enough time. Any questions that you have related to the content, you can get a hold of us at our Solution Support team by calling our 800 number or sending us an email at support@naviant-inc.com. Anything about VRS and or OnBase, or of course anything about your system needs, whether you need a system audit or anything else, don't hesitate to give us a call. And as I mentioned before, pricing questions. Ms. Wendy gave you a great little skit and all the pricing related to Kofax VRS Elite. She can, if you want to talk to her about that more specifically on your organization, there's her number at 608-848-0877. She'll be happy to guide you through that over the phone. Go ahead.
Okay. I put up the upcoming events, but I see we do have a question. Somebody's asking if VRS 5.0 only available with this Elite purchase. There is not a 5.0. So if you wanted anything more than what your 4.5 is giving you, you would have to purchase Elite.
Yeah, VRS Elite is the tag name for 5.0. They kind of gave up on the numbering scheme and wanted to get back to more of a word-based naming scheme. And Elite sounds really cool, so I think that's why they went with it. But yeah, you'd have to buy Elite to get the 5.0.
All right. We have our upcoming events here. Naviant is going to host OnBase training like we do every year. Here is some of our current stuff, or for the first part of the year anyway, April through July. For a complete list, you can go out to our website, naviant-inc.com, and you can go to the events tab, and you should be able to see all the classes and better plan your training schedule for the year. And then our next webinar will be March 17th. We haven't determined a topic yet, so all your surveys, if you can give us some information there, will be helpful in determining our topic. And that will be out on our website as soon as we come up with the information. And then again, here is our support number and our email address, and feel free to give us a call or an email on any questions or concerns that you have. And thank you for joining us today.